Hi guys, James at Rampant Lion Reviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we're going to head over to Edinburgh once again and have a taste of another beer from Innis Gunn, and this is one of their seasonal beers, which is the White Oak Wheat Beer, and they seem to be doing a whole host of different styles now over at Innis Gunn, so there's going to be quite a few interesting things coming out of this brewery in the fairly near future, I'm sure. But anyway, as is usual with my beer reviews, I'll take you through a very kind of short history of Innis Gunn. If you do want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. The brewery website's in the description for you below, along with a link to all my other Innis Gunn reviews that I've done for you before, and I will be adding to that in the fairly near future, I'm sure. So anyway, to tell you about Innis Gunn, these guys are an independent specialist brewing company based in Edinburgh that was established back in 2003, although now they actually do most of their brewing at the Wellpark Brewery, which is owned by tenants over in Glasgow. So they were originally a joint venture between William Grant's whisky distilleries, but they became family owned after they were taken over by Dougal Sharp in 2008, but Dougal actually had previously been the head brewer at the famous Caledonian Brewery in Edinburgh, and he was first exposed to brewing at his father's brewery at childhood, so there's quite an interesting brewing heritage in his family, of course. So to tell you about where the whole Innis Gunn barrel aging thing started, the oak aged original beer is the original Innis Gunn brew, and this beer was discovered completely by accident. Dougal was contacted by Grant's whisky distillery, who basically wanted to infuse some of their whisky cask with a very special full malted beer, if you like, and so Dougal actually made this custom made recipe. They stuck it into the casks for 30 days and then later replaced it with whisky, which apparently was very good, but the distillers were very curious about this beer, so they tried it and then thought it was very, very good, and then phoned up Dougal and he went up and tried it himself, and this was really where Innis Gunn was born. It was completely discovered by accident, and then it's gone on to be a kind of very well known worldwide brand, if you like. So really quite cool that this thing was discovered by accident. It seems that this is quite a common thing in Scotland's history. The Skara Brae up in Orkney that I've talked about in those reviews, the prehistoric village, that was discovered by accident because of lightning striking and things. So one of the kind of most well-known Scottish breweries their thing was discovered by accident, so very, very cool. But these guys have got a whole host of different beers. Now the three mainstay ones at the moment are the Rum Finish, the Oak Aged Original, and the Toasted Oak IPA, but they've got various special editions. Those of you over in America seem to get a whole host of different ones that we don't seem to get here, but just check out the brewery website, as I said, and you will get an idea of all the different beers you can get from these guys. So anyway, to tell you about this beer itself, the commercial description that's on the website says, White Oak is native to North America and typically contains a higher vanillin content than its European counterpart, which has a strong influence on the flavour of whatever comes into contact with it once it's made into barrels. Our White Oak is air dried for 24 months before it's made into casks and then charred to create a natural barrier between the spirit and the very heavy virgin vanilla flavour that's locked within the grain of the wood. It's only at this point that our beer would come into contact with it either as casks or as chips in our Oakinators, which is a registered trademark apparently. So let's actually get on to the tasting of this beer itself. So this guy is a 6.4% beer. On the back it describes itself as a German style Crystalweizen, of course unfiltered Hefeweizen, but it says inspired by the aromas and flavours more typically found in a cup of Earl Grey tea, obviously talking about the Bergamo. This German style Crystalweizen beer has been brewed at a warmer temperature to encourage sweeter and spicier flavours to develop, and this brew has been aged over oak and then infused with dried Bergamo and blood orange to create a fragrant and refreshing finish. So the specs of this beer is a 6.4% crystal wheat beer. It has a malt base of Innis Gunn special ale malt, malted wheat and lager malt, and the hops in this guy are Super Styrian and Fugo hops, so it should be quite an interesting brew. Just want to point out a few things on the bottle with this guy before we crack on with it. As you can see, one of the things, these bottles always tell you on the bottom how many days they're aged for. So this guy, as you can see, is aged for 46 days, and you can see Esther Binnies has approved this beer for bottling, and then you can see Dougal Sharp's signature on the bottom there. And this is the typical Innis Gunn label on these. They're all different colours, and you can see this is a seasonal edition one. And there is a little bit of nice glasswork in here as well. You can see the barrels and stuff, and then yeah, so it's quite cool. This is the typical Innis Gunn bottle cap. Just let the camera refocus so you can see it. It has the same barrel thing that you're getting on the front label. It's basically a smaller version of that. But anyway, without further ado, let's crack on with this. So this is a 6.4% Hefeweizen, and it should be very interesting, I'm sure. It's got blood orange and Bergamo in it, and yeah, let's just see how we get on with this guy. You can smell the fruits as you crack it open, by the way. It's really a quite sharp citrusy fruit that comes off it just in the opening. So as you can see, it's poured a very kind of rich goldeny straw colour. It looks very, very nice, as you can see. I'll just bring up the light and let you have a look at the colour of this. So it's actually a very pale kind of golden straw colour. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see it's completely transparent. There's a finger of a slightly creamy coloured head on this. I would say it's more creamy than it is kind of straight up white. There's some carbonation bubbles sticking towards the side of the glass and a good few little bubbles going up towards the bottom of the head, so it looks a very, very nice beer. Really, it's just, I love it when you get a beer that just looks like that, so clear, and you can just see right through it. And with Innis Gunn, you know it's going to taste nice as well. So let's give this guy a smell. It's quite interesting, actually. There's quite a few things going on. It's a very mild aroma. It's not too pungent, but there are a few things in there. So obviously you've got the big wood notes in this, but the vanilla is really what's coming out. And as they say, that's what you would expect from the wood. But you can pick up just a little bit of spicy wheat in there, and some kind of citrusy and grassy hops. I want to say there's maybe even a teeny bit of coriander type smell in here, which must be the bergamot. It does have that really kind of tea smell about it, if you like. But you've got a big oaky note, as you would expect from Innis Gunn. That's really their trademark. But there's a lot of vanilla in there. You really get that underlying vanilla from this one. You can pick up just a little teeny caramel sweetness in there, but a little bit of spicy wheat coming out of it as well. It doesn't actually smell too much like a wheat beer, but there's some grassy hop in there, and you can pick up just a little bit of the sharper citrus. But a big vanilla, sweet kind of toffee and sort of toffee caramel aroma coming off this. You can pick up a little bit of the pale malt as well. But you always get interested in quite infused aromas from Innis Gunn. So as I always say, just take a little bit of time and smell your beer when you're tasting one of theirs. Really interesting, actually. So yeah, a big oaky smell, nice little bit of sweet caramel, a lot of vanilla, but there's a bit of spicy wheat in there, and some grassy and citrusy hops all coming out. So without further ado, let's get on and have a taste of the white oak wheat beer from Innis Gunn in Edinburgh. Slàinte. First impression is very, very smooth. So it's a nice, it's not quite as sharp as you would expect a German Hefeweizen. Usually a German Hefeweizen has very, very sharp citrusy and sort of grassy hop. It's usually quite tart, actually, but this guy is really more of a malt beer. But I can see why they're saying the flavours are a bit more like a kind of Earl Grey tea, if you like. It really is a very kind of mild flavour, this one. It's got a nice sweetness to it. So it's got a kind of sweet, kind of pale malt element to it. And you can pick up that woody oak character. You get just this pale malt blanket that blankets the tongue there. You get a nice, sweet, woody oak flavour in there. And we get this nice big vanilla flavour that just really fuses in with that. The big woody and vanilla flavours blend together really, really well, but that's what you expect with barrel aging. But there's a sort of sweet, wet caramel feel, just goes right down the middle of the tongue there. And there is a nice little spice from the wheat in there as well. You can just taste that. It just moves out a little bit towards the edge of the tongue, and around the edges of the tongue you're getting just a little mild grassy, maybe slightly floral character as well. At the back corners of the tongue you can feel just a little bit of floral dryness in there. It's a very mild grassy hop and some sweet kind of citrusy orange flavours in there that are coming out. The tasting notes on the website actually said there was grapefruit in this, but there really isn't. There's not really any grapefruit in this at all, I would say. There is a little kind of sourish flavour in it, but it's definitely not the sort of same thing you would expect from the kind of grapefruit flavours you would expect from like an American IPA, and the two hops that they've got in there, the Super Styrians and the Fugos, I'm really not, I don't think they would really have a sort of grapefruit flavour coming out. It's a more malt forward beer. This, as I say, a nice pale malt blanket, some woody oak character in there with a lot of vanilla flavours fused in and a little bit of caramel. It's a nice interesting blend of flavours, this one. There's a nice orangey presence. You just get a little oily bubble that moves towards the front of the tongue there. And as I say, you've got a nice mild grassy hop flavour that just goes around the edges of the tongue. A little bit of maybe lemony citrus in there too, but there's a nice juicy orange flavour just in that bubble that moves towards the front of the tongue. And there's a little bit of floral and aromatic-y dryness just around the back edges there. So it's a really quite interesting flavour, this. The wheat kind of spice is very mild, but it's mixed in with that big vanilla flavour. You have to pay attention actually to kind of pick it out a little bit, but this really doesn't have the features that you would expect of a kind of Hefeweizen, especially a Crystal Weizen beer. Crystal Weizen usually has a very sharp, grassy and citrusy hop, and it's usually quite tart as well, and the wheat really isn't that prominent in the flavour of this beer. I think it tastes different from the other Innis Guns I've had, but the wheat really isn't that big a presence here. Although that said, when you move into the aftertaste a little bit more, you can pick up just a little bit of that spice in the tongue, just behind the sort of orangey, juicy bubble that comes up on the tongue. You can pick up just a little bit of the wheat spice in there. So it's the wheat is more of a kind of more blended in, if that makes sense. But that's typical of Innis Gunn. They're known for the barrel aging, the big woody, vanilla, caramelly, butterscotch flavours, if you like. So it's another interesting variant of beer they've done here. It is quite nice and quite a nice tasting beer, I would say. In terms of the mouthfeel then, I'd say it's mid-bodied. The carbonation is very light on it. It is a really smooth beer. Slightly oily mouthfeel as well, I would say. But really it's more of a sweet malt beer. There is a little bit of dryness at the back corners of the tongue from the alcohol, from the aromatic hops, I should say, and there is just a teeny bit of alcohol warmth from it. When it's 6.4%, it's what you would expect. You only feel it down here, but it doesn't taste boozy at all. But anyway, it's a really nice and quite enjoyable beer. It's not as prominent in the Hefeweizen characteristics as you would expect when they're saying it's a wheat beer. It's more of a kind of Innis Gunn typical ale, but with just a little bit of wheaty flavour in it. That's probably the fairest way to describe it. But it's nice and it's drinkable. If you like Innis Gunn beers, definitely give it a go. I quite enjoy it. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this beer review. Let me know in the comments section your own thoughts on this beer. As always, I always quite like hearing them. This is another really quite enjoyable beer from Innis Gunn. As I say, it's a typical brew of theirs, just with a little bit of wheat infused in it. So quite an interesting variant. So check it out if you are interested. But please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. I hope you've enjoyed another Innis Gunn beer review from me. I'm stuttering my words a little bit tonight, but I hope you've enjoyed it, and please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff, and I will catch you soon with my next beer review, and there will be more Innis Gunn. Slàinte.